Welcome back, everybody, to the Meeple Marathon and another session of showing off a board game that is excellent in app form. And this one in particular is another one that I prefer the playing it in app form versus playing it in person. Essentially, this is a territory control game, and there's a lot of take that elements. It's not really take that, but it's very quickly you have to go after the other players, and so that's the biggest reason why I prefer playing it in app form, is because I can play against AI bots, and I don't feel bad about it. I don't have to play against my friends and feel bad about knocking their people out all the time. So what you saw first there was me selecting my race, and I'm just reminding myself of what my race does. Essentially, as the trolls, when I go in, everywhere I land, I fortify my location, making it more difficult to come in and usurp me from the location. And also the ghouls simply means that once I go into decline and then go into decline again, my people won't disappear off the map. So basically that means that I'm going to want to go through a couple of races here. So for those of you not familiar with the game, I'm going to try and talk through it rather quickly, because in app form this game doesn't take hardly any time at all. Essentially what you're doing is you are given a certain amount of tokens, race tokens, at the beginning of the game, and that is determined by your faction and your ability. So here we'll look at what the computer is going to choose here in just a second. They have the option of say halflings, and those first ones I think it was like 6 and 4, so they have 10 total tokens they can spend here to put out on the board. And gameplay is super simple. Essentially you need to have at least one more person or token than there are tokens in the area you're trying to get to. So if there is one, if the land is empty, then all you need to do is put one token down. But otherwise you have to have a larger army per se than who you're trying to take over. There are things like rules like mountain regions cost extra to move into and to take over, and like fortifications like around all my trolls make it more difficult. There's also certain things like you can see the first two areas that the halflings put down, the burrows, make those two areas immune to anyone moving in on them. But essentially you want to try and control as many areas as possible at the end of your turn, because then you're going to count up VP for every territory you control plus any bonuses. For example, you might get a bonus if you are in the woods, because that's your trait versus your faction or something like that. So really all this is just trying to take over risk style, as many territories as possible. Then you would like for those territories to not be messed with when it's not your turn, but obviously the other people are going to mess with you. So what I've just done here is gone into decline, and that means that for this next round I'm not going to do any attacking. I flipped over all of my tokens to that kind of grayed outside, and those tokens will stay there, but as soon as somebody takes over them, they're gone off the board completely. But any tokens that continue to stay out there will give me points for the future. So obviously a good strategy is always to get as many tokens out at the beginning of the game, take over as much land, and kind of be in an area where you're not going to be messed with. And so here you can see that the turn after I go into decline, I'm allowed to pick a new race and power combo. And anytime that I pick one further down the list, I have to actually spend a victory point, or coins I think they're called in the game. Spend a coin to go one lower. So here at this point I essentially want to try and protect those trolls up along the top. Also remove as many of my opponents as I can. My special power is the dragon power, which allows me to take over any region with a single faction tile. Doesn't matter, and so I aimed at taking out one that was heavily fortified. And you can also see here that I'm hovering over that space and there's a little 1 die symbol. that means is that every time you are putting out your last faction tile, or last set of faction tiles, you can roll a die and be able to kind of beef up your army numbers by the die roll. So that was telling me that I would need at least a 1 on the die roll in order to be successful, and I wasn't. I rolled a blank. I think there's like 2 blanks on the die. It's not a true D6 or anything like that. So really, this is the game, and the game moves so much faster in app form. First of all, because the computer is very swift in making their decisions, and you can see here I start using the fast forward button instead of having to watch the animation of them counting up their coins or victory points at the end of every round. I simply just skip through all that, and so you can get in a game of Small World in under 15 minutes, and you'll see that by the time this completely gets to the end here, it's going to be about around the 13-minute mark. So again, just to kind of recap, I prefer the app versions of the game because it takes away that take that element of the game of playing against your friends. Another reason is that I'm pretty sure the main game, I actually don't own the main game, but my brother-in-law does. I'm pretty sure the main game requires you to have 3 players at least. It's not even a game you can play head-to-head, and sometimes that's just a hard number of players to find. And so I can always play Small World on my iPad, and again, I don't have to worry about hurting anybody's feelings. The third one is that the game moves so much faster in app form, simply because there's less analysis paralysis from all the different players, and the counting up of points here can be done instantly if you remember to press that fast forward button. And so this is just one of those games that I highly recommend you to add to your collection, simply because it is a fun game and it's very simple, very straightforward. The variable factions versus the special powers, which are always going to give you different combinations, make the variety in the game a lot of fun. I believe I'm playing on standard difficulty, and you can see here that I'm not blowing the AI out of the water. Actually, in fact, I think I'm, if not losing, but everything's very close at this point. It's always very competitive. I think you might be able to play on easy mode, but otherwise I probably lose more often than I win or don't get first. So that's another nice thing to consider. But the game is only 10 rounds, so there is a very finite amount of time it can go, and you can put your people into decline as many times as you want during the game and just pick a new race. You could do it I guess 5 times, because when you go into decline, you don't pick a new faction until the next turn. So, yeah, and it's really just up to you. It's kind of almost a little bit of push your luck element to see how far you can spread yourself, but then you're spreading yourself thin and making it easier for people to come behind you and knock you out of those areas. So here again, I am just going to go in decline because I still have all of my trolls up there, which is good. And since they had the ghoul setting, they're not going to disappear, which normally would have happened. So yeah, there's not much else I have to say about this game. Again, it's very simple to play and very fast on the app, so it's another one that I highly recommend. So I'm going to stop talking now and simply allow you to enjoy the rest of the game if you want to continue watching and see who wins.